Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we are going to talk about the film Gone in the Night by Winona Ryder, D&D Queen. She has done a tremendous amount to support Dungeons and Dragons through her making Stranger Things successful, which has massively increased the success of Dungeons and Dragons and enabled it to effortlessly surge past every OSR game and every indie game. It's just one of the many booster rockets that has been attached to the butt of Dungeons and Dragons. But there are going to be spoilers in Gone in the Night here. So this is a brilliant film, and I was really curious when I watched this film, why did Winona Ryder take the time to do this film, right? Because it is truly unique film in that it's very low budget. So nowadays, if something's low budget, why would you do a low budget film? Especially if you're an actual star like Winona Ryder. She can bring butts to the seats for any project, right? And so I think the reason that that Winona Ryder did Gone in the Night, and by the way, 5 out of 5 star movie. It's every Dungeon Master content. I already did a video on how it's an absolute template for making a minimum viable narrative, right? But why did Winona Ryder choose to do this movie? Well, it's low budget, right? So it certainly wasn't the money that attracted her. I think, one, she got to be the star, and she deserves to be a star. She is, she's a true Hollywood star, right? And so she should be able to be a lead, right? So this movie made her the lead, which she deserves, right? And that's another thing I want us to start thinking about. Are we thinking about that at our Dungeons and Dragons table? Who's the lead? Who's the lead, right? And you're like, Scott, there's no lead, right? Well, guess what? Okay, Gary gifted us with this incredible human flourishment engine, which many think is a game called Dungeons and Dragons. In my humble opinion, Dungeons and Dragons is a human flourishment engine. It's a powerful tool we use to cut our own. It's not a game we use to cut goblins in half. It's a powerful human flourishment tool we use to cut our own deficiencies in half and the deficiencies of the players at our table, and correspondingly the deficiencies of our society, the culture we live in. Joe Manganiello talked about this openly in the last D&D Direct. He talked about people transforming their lives with Dungeons & Dragons and impacting the cultures they live in. It's pretty astounding, right? So basically, so Winona Ryder got in here, and she did this because she wanted to be the lead, all right, in her story. The other thing is, because it's low budget, it has to be darn near perfectly written, right? You can't, and the thing is, you just can't serve up junk, right? Now, believe it or not, it's really kind of strange. Like when you put a lot of whiz bang on the screen, like Fast X or Star Wars or Marvel nowadays, you can get away with a lot of crap writing. And this is one of the reasons why we're so upset with the Hollywood writers right now, is they've taken that advantage. They're like, you know what, rather than tell a good story, why don't I give you every single message on how you should live your life, right? And that's why nobody cares about like this writer strike, and everybody's kind of rooting against them, in my humble opinion, right? Is they just, it's a whole thing, right? So you get this situation where you're into, and then, so why did she, so one, she chose it because she wants to be a lead, right? Two, I think she read the script and she's like, this is a banger story, man. This makes sense. It's powerful. You sit down, you walk away thinking, right? The other thing is these fantasy worlds. We build fantasy worlds. So I love this film, but it was very clear there was a powerful fantasy contained within this film. What was the fantasy contained within this film? This was a movie about people who are capturing other people and using them as blood cows, right? Like literally taking out their young blood and extending their own life by 5 or 10 years by replacing all their blood in themselves with another person's blood, right? So these are people who are literally getting their own. It's like vampirism in IRL, right? That's what the film's about, right? And honestly, from everything I've heard, there are wealthy people who right now have blood donors, right? Like, and are literally replacing their own blood with younger blood on the reg. Like, it's very fascinating, right? But the thing is, these people were doing it illegally. They were kidnapping people in order to use them as their own personal blood donors, right? But the whole film, the entire film, has very distinct points of violence where violence and a fight would erupt, but there's not a gun anywhere in the film, right? None of the people involved in these horrific crimes carry guns or use guns, right? And the moment I saw it, I was like, that's what brought her in, right? Like, that's is she wants to tell a story where guns don't matter, right? Very fascinating, right? And so her fantasy world is a world where one person cannot overpower another person just because they spent $250 at a show a week ago. And that's incredibly attractive her this world shaped without this thing, and it completely changes the world, right? So the movie is highly unrealistic from that perspective. Like, there would absolutely have been a firearm in these situations almost immediately, right? Like, and none of the things that happened in the film would have happened if even one person were using, long iron, short iron tools, right? Like, it's just a way of it, but when we move forward in Dungeons & Dragons, we craft these worlds and we pull some things out and we put some things in, right? And we can create these worlds that people want to live in, and immerse them in it, and completely immerse them in it. And it's really, really fascinating. So you really need to see Gone in the Night. It's an extremely very tightly crafted narrative, right? And it doesn't rely on dazzles and whiz bangs, and it's just like, let's look at this situation. Let's look at it in high detail. Let's know every single character in it, and let's pull one thing out. And that's what Gone in the Night does, is it pulls out the gun from modern society. That's fascinating. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.